Hello.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this press conference by COP29 Climate Justice Coalition. My name is Asad Rahman from War on Want. In 2022, the world's climate scientists said in the IPCC AR6 climate report that the high vulnerability of people in the global south is influenced by historical and ongoing patterns of inequity such as colonialism, especially for many indigenous peoples and local communities. It's now a recognised scientific and political fact that the roots of the climate crisis are deeply entwined with the history of colonialism, that the exploitation of colonised land, people and resources contributed to the carbon emissions that have led to both global heating, environmental degradation and the deliberate and ongoing sacrifice of both peoples and their lands because their lives were seen and continue to be seen as worth less than others. Nowhere has that been illustrated more clearly than in the ongoing ecocide and genocide against the indigenous Palestinian people by settler colonialism, aided, armed, financed and given diplomatic cover and support by rich, powerful countries such as the US, the United Kingdom, EU and other Western powers. It is no accident that the most powerful backers of Israel, those that are willing to make hollow the words never again into again and again every single day, who are burning down international law, are willing to sit by whilst the UN itself is attacked and life-saving UN institutions such as UNRWA are banned, are those with their own bloody history of colonial violence and settler colonialism against other indigenous peoples, be it Native Americans in the United States, Aboriginal people in Australia, indigenous communities in South America. Just this week, the UN Human Rights Chief said about Israel's war on the Palestinians, we are seeing increasingly aggressive attacks and campaigns against international institutions and mechanisms, including the UN, the Office of UN Human Rights, the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, calling out the unwillingness of some states to protect the very institutions that are designed to protect us all, uphold the universality of human rights, and of course are at the centre of this all UN space and the UN Convention on Climate Change. And it's ironic that in this space, we as global civil society are also gagged from taking actions that stand in support of the UN, the Secretary General, UNRWA, or even showing the faces of our Palestinian colleagues, aid workers, medics, artists, trade unionists, students who are being murdered as we speak because of pressure from some of those very same states. We know the spectre of fascism and far-right populism is gaining ground globally, united in a politics of climate denialism, eco-fascism, anti-Muslim and anti-migrant racism, and of militarism. That those who refuse to pay up for the damages that they have done to the people on our planet are happy to give trillions to fossil fuel companies, to spend trillions on bombs, but leave the loss and damage fund empty, the adaptation fund rattling around with loose change, and claim that there is no money for climate action, but no shortage of money for genocide. And we know that if we are unable to prevent the televised genocide of the Palestinians, then, and if we as people of conscience stay silent, then we will be unable to stop the genocide of climate injustice. President Petro of Colombia said at this very same institution at COP28 last year, in the faces of the Palestinian people, we, the peoples of the global south, see our past, our present and our future. And today's panel will be exploring that. We have alongside us Mohammed Usraf, Programme Lead, a Palestinian Climate Youth negotiations team from Gaza, Yana Rashid, a Palestinian refugee from the Nakba in 1948, now currently at Climate Sirens, addressing ecocide, and our colleague Shadi Khalil, Senior Global Policy Strategist of Oil Change International, whose groundbreaking report earlier this year, Behind the Barrel, the new insights into the countries and companies behind Israel's fuel supply. And last but not least, Lydia Nakbil, convener of the COP29 Climate Justice Coalition and coordinator of the Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development, on why Palestine is such a critical issue for peoples of the Global South. I'm going to hand over to Mohammed first.
Thank you, Assad. Disjointed, dismembered, and fragmented, Palestinian bodies in Gaza are, but so is our international community. The human, physical, and environmental devastation transcends what you and I think. It is the greatest moral question that faces us all. Do we as people turn away from those facing genocide and ecocide, or are we willing to be complicit with apartheid in the West Bank, with those profiting from destruction? And are we willing to be silent? The families have always called you and I over the phone to check on you, to call us for recognition. I have lost my family in Gaza, and my aunt's dismembered remains call to us. What can you make of your pursuit of justice in such spaces? As Bisan, a Gazan journalist, said, looking for organs, heads, or skin. You walk a little bit and you see corpses waiting for someone to recognize them. Now, the mere act of digging a grave peacefully is the only time the dignity of the Palestinians becomes whole. What becomes of your pursuit of justice here at COP and your own local communities and countries? Growing up in Gaza, a place that for decades has been subjected to violence, blockades, and suffering, I stand before you, not here just as a witness, but a witness to the horrors that my people are enduring, but as a survivor in a land where the genocide is unfolding right in front of your eyes. For the last year, Gaza has been under the most intense and brutal assault that we have ever experienced. The sky above us is filled with the sounds of bombings. The ground beneath us shakes with the forces of airstrikes. There is no safe place in Gaza. Hospitals are overflowing with the wounded, yet even they are not safe. Bombed while they treat the injured. Children's hospitals and maternity wards, as well as shelters and religious spaces, among every other space in Gaza, has been left untouched, and none of these spaces are spared. And now food, water, and electricity are being used as weapons of war. This is not war, this is not conflict, this is genocide. And this is the time that we as an international community come for the Palestinians and come for the people of the Global South under the larger message of international unity. Act. Thank you.
Yeah.
After talking about the genocide, we have to mention the ecocide in both Palestine and Lebanon. But first, we need to know what ecocide exactly means. Ecocide means ecocide is a crime against ecosystem. It's a destruction of the land and environment by human beings. For Palestine and Lebanon, countries deeply reliant on their natural resources, ecocide is not only an environmental tragedy, but it's also a threat to the survival, an intentional destruction of the environment to make a place uninhabitable in order to ethnically cleanse its population. During the first 4 months of the strikes, Israel has unleashed 70,000 tons of bombs on Palestine, mainly in Gaza. These bombs contain phosphorus bombs, which have the potential to seriously damage the environment and infrastructure. White phosphor impacts aquatic life when it comes to contact with water, where it can stay concealed for years. Detonation releases phosphoric acid, which is extremely corrosive and can cause soil acidification, stunted plant development, and even water contamination. Bombs generate ecological issues that contaminate the soil, water, and air, destroying every foundation of life. In Gaza, the farmland is burned and broken, water sources are poisoned, and sewage systems lie in ruins. The sea, which was once always full of life, is now toxic, and the land, which was full of olive trees, now struggles to recover because of the war, because of the genocide. The land's destruction isn't only physical, it's emotional, it's cultural, it's deeply personal. Our connection as Palestinian and as Lebanese to the olive trees is deeply rooted because it symbolized peace and resilience for us. It holds a unique place in the heritage, particularly for us. However, now these trees serves as an evidence of the cost of conflicts in both Palestine and Lebanon. 3 million trees have been destroyed in Gaza, which is a continuation of destruction and uprooting that Israel has long practiced across Palestine. Lebanon as well suffers from the same wounds. Airstrikes and unexploded bombs litter its landscape, threatening green valleys, ancient cedar forests, and coastal waters. More than 47,000 olive trees have been lost as a result of the ongoing genocide also in Lebanon during the crucial harvesting season, also preventing the farmers from farming and from benefiting from this season. This goes beyond the olive groves. Some areas were rendered unsuitable for farming as a result of the bombardment. Agriculture in South Lebanon has suffered from the ongoing genocide, which has resulted in land degradation, chemical contamination, and ongoing threat of unexploded munitions. This kind of violence doesn't fade easily, but in the middle of this pain, there's always a determination. There's always determination to fight, to remember to fight. These stories need to be told. Justice for environment must be pursued. We must hold those responsible accountable, or we risk losing our lands. But also, not only our lands, but also our identity, our heritage, our future, generation after generation.
Thank you, Yana. But this ecocide and genocide is not possible without the complicity of the fossil fuel industry, those that are fueling this war. So over to you, Shady.
Thank you. I mean, it's not news. For years and years, we have known that the fossil fuel industry has been exploiting, extracting, and having an unending hunger for profit. It has driven climate change, and this is why we are here, deepened inequality and devastated ecosystems. But today we face even a graver reality. This industry is not only plundering our planet, but also enabling a genocide in Gaza and leading and bombing and invading a war in Lebanon. OCI commissioned data analysis on crude oil and refined petroleum flows to Israel in order to see who's fueling this genocide. Between October 2023 and July 2024, we have identified the following: 65 totaling on 4.8 million tons of oil and gas entering Israel. This data is verified through satellite images and also trading database. Azerbaijan, where we being hosted in COP29, emerged as Israel leading crude oil supplier, accounting for 28% of its imports. I mean, I sit with this for a bit. Shockingly, despite the International Court, ICJ, issuing an interim order under Article 1 of the Genocide Convention, citing a risk of genocide. Nearly 64% of these shipments continue without interruption. Meanwhile, the United States, of course, remains complicit by exporting military-grade jet fuel refined in Texas. This fuel directly powers the aircrafts that bomb neighborhoods, hospitals, schools in Gaza and Lebanon. The Valero, specifically refinery in Corpus Christi, Texas, is directly implicit in this devastation. I mean, it's clear. The International Court of Justice has been very clear in their interim order under Article 1 of Genocide Convention, and I repeated, and my colleagues repeated more than once, states an obligation to prevent and to punish a genocide. The ICJ has already identified a real and imminent risk of genocide in Gaza, where civilians are under siege. But yet Azerbaijan and the US continue to put a priority to profits over Palestinian and Lebanese lives and continue to fuel this genocide. This is more than policy failure. It's a profound moral collapse. These countries are enabling colonial violence under the disguise of economic interest. That we also see the same patterns happening also within the climate space. Exposing deep hypocrisy of nations that claim to champion climate justice while being complicit in bloodshed of innocent civilians. The fight of climate justice is inseparable from the fight against colonialism, occupation, and military oppression. The same systems that extract the oil from the earth fund also bombs that drops on homes. Corporations like BP, Chevron, Eni, ExxonMobil, and Shell, which control 35% of the shipments we tracked, are complicit into this genocide. This is also neocolonialism that's coming to our countries and our regions in the global south. Countries must be held accountable. They possess the power to stop this violence. They are not helpless. They simply can turn off the taps. The fossil fuel industry relentless pursuit for profit, costing lives, and the government that supports this industry are directly complicit in this genocide. We say it loud and clear here at COP29, climate justice cannot exist without dismantling the systems of colonialism, occupation that drive both environmental destruction and human suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Lady Nakpil from COP29 Coalition in APMDD.
Hello, good morning. I'm Lidi. I'm from the Philippines. The first time I joined a solidarity group for the people of Palestine was when I was in the university, and I can tell you this was many decades ago. At that time, many of us felt that it's not enough to say we are in solidarity, because this is a common fight. We should see this as our fight, not something we are in solidarity with. And I speak for many people in the Global South when we say we have experienced, we have witnessed, and we continue to witness the same colonial occupation and exploitation of our people and our countries. We have experienced and we have witnessed the same utter disregard for our lives, for our rights, as we have seen in Palestine. But we know that this is probably one of the most blatant and extreme way that colonial powers, the same powers that are dominating and controlling and maneuvering in this climate negotiations, this is one of the most blatant. And I think many of us who have seen many horrific things happen in our own countries have been more than horrified at what we have seen in just the last few months. We come here, and we're here for one purpose in these climate negotiations, and that is because we want to save our people and our planet from climate catastrophe. That is because we are here for our people. So I do not understand why we have to explain why we are talking about Palestine in the UNFCCC. Isn't that also about people? How can we talk about saving humanity from climate change when we're not going to talk about saving it from one of the most atrocious wars against humanity that has ever taken place in our planet? Against this very blatant, arrogant, with not even a shred of pretense that this is something evil, because they're just outrightly, blatantly saying they have a right to do this, to disregard people's lives. So we're here not just to express our solidarity, but to say this is our fight. This is our common fight. And when we will stand with you in these halls to mobilize against what is happening in Palestine, to call for the stop to genocide, to war, we are calling that for our people as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Liddy. As powerful as ever. As ever with these press conferences, we don't have much time, so I'm going to take if there are any questions. Yep. No? Yes, please.
Thank you. This is a very inspirational speech. What I want to ask is, what are some immediate political measures that we can approach to mitigate the current situation?
Okay. So the question was practical, immediate measures. So I'm going to go this way down.
Well, first of all, they must stop the genocide. We are not just calling for an immediate ceasefire. We need to stop all these senseless killings that is happening in Palestine, but also in many places in the world. And we want the governments in this conference to say something about it. They cannot pretend that it's not related to climate. They must be forced, they must be compelled in this conference to say something. They have been ignoring this issue. We don't understand why in the United Nations there's a lot of statements, strong statements that have already been held, but here they're pretending that it is not happening. No one is saying anything. No one government is saying anything about this. So we have to compel them to react and to say something in this conference, I think. That's an immediate practical thing.
Yeah, and if I can also add, arms embargo and energy. I mean, closing off the tap. It's very, very easy, right? It's not very easy in terms of practice, but it's a very easy in terms of political pressure. And the ICJ put the legal ground for this. So governments need to start doing this. You cannot just say that you condemn the genocide without taking this action. So we urge governments to do this. This is a very practical political move that they can do to pressure and stop this genocide.
I'll keep my part. I'll keep my part very simple. What I do want to say is that, politically speaking, there is a political schism and there is political engineering that comes from those corporations that we see here in the UNFCCC. This is not the first war that has been waged in history, but it is the war where we see that we're all just either complicit or a war that we feel just unable to move. What I do ask is that on an individual basis, let's put the political aside, there's a genocide ongoing and it's a direct target at the people. What I ask is that you all participate in acting. Liddy mentioned the idea of solidarity. When I'm moving forward in an attempt to change the status quo, I don't need your solidarity. I need your proactiveness, and I need you to move with me. And that's why we need action from all over the world. And that's the only way we can change the status quo. We've always had solidarity for every single movement. It's time to do more than that. And it's time to, each and every single one of you, talks directly to their own communities and not just raise awareness, not just fundraise, but just think critically about what the lady here just asked. So keep asking questions and keep looking for answers. The solution is not as easy as it seems, and as Shadi said, do try to close the tap, but do keep asking questions and pushing others to do more. Thank you.
For me, I think we are sick of slogan and only talking. We need to start implementing. We need to start taking action. As I know, there's a demand by Palestinian organization for an energy embargo to end the supply of fossil fuel that Israel uses in its military vehicles and war plans to bombard Gaza and Lebanon. And I see this is a perfect way of implementation. So we need to start working forward and proceed from that step to beyond.
I know we're about to close. So we're about to close because we're going to run out of time. But just in answering the question for those of you who are in the global north, it's very clear there are banks and corporations, the very same ones like Barclays that are fueling the fossil fuel industry are also fueling in the arms industry. So this is where our movements come together. Our governments, who have a legal obligation under the ICJ and ICC rulings of not supporting the illegal occupation of ethnic cleansing and the genocide, we have to hold those account. And the very practical way we can do that, of course, is by targeting the energy industry, the fossil fuel industry. That is a connection between the climate justice movement and those who are standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. That's why on Friday and Saturday this week, the global climate justice movement is standing up and marching together with the Palestinian solidarity movement, targeting and saying defund genocide, fund climate change. Thank you, everyone. People are available. Hello again.
We didn't go beyond time, did we? We're okay, right?
I guess.
Hey, we're good.